Peace. That's what they called it. 200 years of stability, prosperity, order, the Pax Romana. But here's the uncomfortable question. Was it really peace, or was it the silence of fear? Because when Rome said peace, what it often meant was obedience. And obedience was enforced by legions, crucifixions, and a message carved in stone across 3 continents. Resist, and you disappear. So today we're diving deep into one of the most powerful narratives in world history, the Pax Romana. 2 centuries that supposedly changed the course of civilization. But by the end of this video, you might see it very differently. And there's one emperor in particular, often praised as Rome's greatest, whose decisions may quietly have planted the seeds of collapse. We'll get there. To understand the Pax Romana, we have to go back to chaos, real chaos, civil wars that tore the Roman Republic apart, generals turning on generals, senators assassinating leaders in the name of liberty. And the murder of Julius Caesar in 44 BC didn't save the Republic, it finished it. What followed was bloodshed on an industrial scale. Power struggles between Octavian, Mark Antony, and Lepidus, proscriptions, confiscations, civil war across the Mediterranean. Rome was exhausted. The Republic was broken beyond repair. And out of that exhaustion rose a man who understood something crucial. Romans didn't just want freedom anymore. They wanted stability. They wanted security. They wanted peace. That man was Augustus. In 27 BC, Octavian became Augustus, Rome's first emperor, though he never openly used the word. According to historians like Adrian Goldsworthy and Mary Beard, Augustus was politically brilliant. He didn't abolish the Republic outright, he reshaped it from within. He kept the Senate, he preserved Republican titles, but behind the curtain, real power flowed to him. He controlled the legions, he controlled the treasury, he controlled appointments. And in return, he gave Rome something it hadn't seen in generations: order. This is where the Pax Romana begins. Officially, historians date it from 27 BC to around 180 AD, ending with the death of Marcus Aurelius. Roughly 2 centuries, a period often described as Rome's Golden Age. Trade flourished across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Roads connected provinces like arteries, pumping wealth into the imperial heart. The Mediterranean became what Romans proudly called Mare Nostrum, our sea. Pirates were crushed, borders were fortified, cities expanded, aqueducts rose, law codes developed, and for many citizens within the empire's core, life stabilized in ways their ancestors couldn't have imagined. But stability doesn't mean the absence of violence. It means violence is controlled and monopolized. The legions never stopped fighting. They simply fought on the edges, in Germania, in Britain, in Judea, in Dacia. And each of those campaigns tells a different story about what peace really meant. When Emperor Claudius invaded Britain in 43 AD, it wasn't diplomacy, it was conquest. When Rome crushed the Great Jewish Revolt in 70 AD under Vespasian and Titus, culminating in the destruction of Jerusalem and the Second Temple, that was Pax Romana in action. Tacitus, one of Rome's own historians, famously wrote about Roman imperialism, "They make a desert and call it peace." That line should sit with you, because the Pax Romana was less about universal harmony and more about centralized dominance. Inside the empire's heartlands, Italy, southern Gaul, parts of Hispania, prosperity was real. Archaeological evidence supports this. Urbanization increased, infrastructure projects multiplied, coin circulation expanded, trade routes connected India to Rome through Egypt. The Roman legal system developed into something that would influence Western civilization for millennia. But in frontier zones, it was a different story. Rebellions were crushed swiftly and brutally. Entire populations were enslaved. Crucifixion was not symbolic, it was policy. And yet, despite this, the Pax Romana worked. Economically, politically, administratively, it worked. The empire became a machine of governance. Augustus and his successors professionalized the army. They established a standing force of around 28 legions. They created the Praetorian Guard. They implemented tax reforms, census systems, provincial administration structures. According to Edward Gibbon in the History of the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, this era represented the happiest and most prosperous period in human history, at least from the perspective of those living within the imperial core. But even Gibbon acknowledged something critical. This peace was fragile. The Julio-Claudian emperors who followed Augustus, Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, and Nero, ruled under a delicate balance of fear and legitimacy. When Nero's rule spiraled into paranoia and spectacle, it ended in suicide and civil war in 68 AD. The year of the four emperors proved that Rome's stability depended on one thing above all else: control of the army. Whoever had the legions had the empire. The Flavian dynasty restored order. Then came the so-called five good emperors: Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, Antoninus Pius, and Marcus Aurelius. This is often described as the peak of the Pax Romana. Under Trajan, Rome reached its greatest territorial extent. Under Hadrian, borders were consolidated, literally, with Hadrian's Wall in Britain. Under Antoninus Pius, there were few major wars, and under Marcus Aurelius, philosopher-emperor, author of Meditations, Rome maintained its image of disciplined strength. But here's where the illusion starts to crack. Marcus Aurelius spent much of his reign fighting on the Danube frontier. The Marcomannic Wars were brutal. Germanic tribes pressed against Roman borders. Plagues swept through the empire, likely smallpox according to modern epidemiology. The Antonine Plague may have killed millions. Economic strain increased. Military costs ballooned. And for the first time in generations, Rome felt pressure it couldn't easily contain. Then came Commodus, and with him, the Pax Romana effectively ended. Commodus abandoned the stoic discipline of his father. He styled himself as Hercules reborn. He fought as a gladiator. He centralized power erratically. After his assassination in 192 AD, Rome plunged into another cycle of instability: the year of the five emperors, and eventually the crisis of the 3rd century. Inflation spiraled, borders collapsed, breakaway empires formed. The illusion of unbreakable peace shattered. So was the Pax Romana truly 200 years of peace? Not exactly. It was 200 years of controlled violence, 200 years of imperial dominance, 200 years where Rome's enemies were suppressed faster than they could destabilize the system. It was peace enforced by military supremacy and administrative genius. But it was also peace dependent on competent leadership, and that's the fragile part, because once leadership faltered, the machinery strained. Modern historians like Mary Beard emphasize that the Pax Romana wasn't a moral judgment, it was a Roman perspective. Peace meant no civil war. It meant the Senate wasn't murdering consuls in the streets. It meant grain shipments arrived on time. It meant taxes were collected efficiently. It meant trade flowed. But for conquered peoples, peace often meant submission. And yet, here's the paradox. Without the Pax Romana, Western civilization looks very different. Roman law, road systems, urban planning, administrative governance, the spread of Christianity across a connected Mediterranean world. None of that happens the same way without 2 centuries of relative stability. The Roman Empire created a platform, a framework, a shared infrastructure that allowed ideas, goods, and culture to move at scale. That's legacy. And legacy outlives armies. The Pax Romana wasn't perfect. It wasn't bloodless. It wasn't universally peaceful, but it was transformative. It proved that a massive multicultural empire could be governed, at least for a time, through centralized authority, legal structure, and disciplined force. It showed the world what sustained imperial stability could look like. And here's the uncomfortable modern parallel. Stability always comes at a cost. The question is who pays it. because Rome's peace depended on expansion, taxation, military presence, and centralized power. And when expansion stopped, the economic engine slowed. When plagues hit, manpower shrank. When emperors weakened, generals competed. The system that created 2 centuries of order couldn't sustain itself indefinitely. That's the deeper story of the Pax Romana. Not just peace, but power, structure, control, fragility. And if you're wondering whether Rome ever truly recovered that level of stability again, that's a story for another video. Because what came next, the crisis of the 3rd century, nearly ended the empire altogether. Breakaway states, economic collapse, soldier emperors rising and falling in months, and one radical reformer who would reshape Rome forever. If you want that deep dive, tell me in the comments. If you found this exploration of the Pax Romana valuable, leave a like. It helps the channel grow. Subscribe for more cinematic deep dives into Roman history, ancient warfare, and the rise and fall of empires. Turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next, and share this with someone who thinks Rome was just marble statues and togas. History is more complicated than that, and much more fascinating. Because peace is rarely what it seems. See you next video.